My name is Jill Coyle, and from years of experience as a divorce attorney, I know for a fact that no one dies from divorce. The experts and I are here to show you how to not only survive, but thrive during the most difficult times. Welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. I'm really excited for my guest today, Tara Sils. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jill. I appreciate you for having me and creating this platform. Amazing.
Absolutely. Today, we're going to be talking about the Bossy Educator, which is Tara, and we're going to be talking about divorce and childhood trauma. So I just want to kind of introduce my my public or our listeners to you, Tara. So the Bossy Educator, Tara Sils, is a 3-time best-selling self-published international author, educator, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and so much more. She creates education solutions for K through 12 schools, students, and families via counseling, workshops, and keynote speaking. Her latest book, Divorce, the Unspoken Childhood Trauma, landed her on the 20 Black women authors you should know list, along with Nikki Giovanni and former First Lady Michelle Obama. So welcome, Tara. Wow. I'm like in awe of what you are and what you stand for, and I'm just grateful you're here.
Thank you for having me, Jill. I appreciate it.
I would love to know a little bit of your story. Go ahead and tell our listeners, tell our story about how you got to what you're doing today.
Yeah, well, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, to two married parents. I am the honeymoon baby. And, life matriculated. It was a very cool childhood. I was very much attached to my grandmother that passed a few years back. Without her, I just simply don't know where I will be as a human being in this world. Matriculated through school, had some awkward moments due to the separation of my parents, not really knowing what was happening, not being a part of the conversation. And then moving along in life, finding my way through my healing process and journey as I'm finding out about these other siblings that, were not by my mom, of course, having questions about that. But still, life is passing you by, right? So I established myself as a business owner. I got my first job at 12 years old at the church, basically the church nursery. While the service was going on, I was in the church nursery at 12 years old, making sure I got $40 a week by helping to work with kids with reading and math. So that's where the love for education started to come in. And I really didn't even notice it at first because my major was business. But funny enough, I ended up teaching business education. So both of my loves were able to collide in one. So became an educator, taught K through 12, all grade levels. I've taught on the collegiate level as a college professor, teaching critical thinking classes and working with students that had issues with reading comprehension. And then I developed into another love of mine, which is special education. So now being a special education teacher, being an advocate for not only students, but for families in general, as the Bossy Educator, providing these educational resources and basically being that village, that person that I needed when I had my times of needs as a child. So that is Tara Sils, the Bossy Educator.
That's amazing. I love that. I always tell people if you make your passion your purpose, then it will become your profession. And that's exactly what you did. And look at all the help and knowledge that you're giving to so many people. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you.
So you've written 3 books. Bless you. I've written one and that was tough. And and everybody's like, are you going to write another one? I'm like, probably, but it's a lot of work. So I want to talk about your latest book, this Divorce, the Unspoken Childhood Trauma. What kind of was your inspiration and thought process in being able to really dive into such a specific subject?
Yes, well, I'm an author, self-published author of 10 books, and 3 of those books have hit the bestseller list. And
I see. That's amazing, Tara. That's so cool.
I know, it's so crazy, Jill. I was just like you, writing that first book, Bossy is as Bossy does, the 5 keys that open doors. You release it, it's like having a baby. It's like, oh, when you gonna have another one? When you gonna write this one? I'm like, I just got over PTSD, honey. So here I am, 10th book in. So trust me, it'll come because the information, the knowledge, the content, your experience just creates this situation where you are kind of like the universe is like, hey, I need to hear from you, and other people need to hear from you too. And so it comes into the form of books, and I love to provide knowledge and information. So here we are. And with Divorce and Unspoken Childhood Trauma, it has been on the bestseller list since I released it, Jill. It is amazing because it is a topic that nobody wants to touch, nobody wants to talk about. Let's just push it under the rug and act like it didn't happen. But divorce is an unspoken childhood trauma that more and more people need to know about. People need to know that it exists. People need to know how to prepare for the changes that their children will go through during divorce. Yeah, children are resilient. I was a resilient child, but without that village that I went and found along the way during my path, Jill, I would be nothing. None of these accomplishments and goals, none of that really means anything without the village that I had. So I always put myself in the situation to be a village member, someone of good intention. So that's how the Bossy Educator came up, the Divorce and Unspoken Childhood Trauma came about, because it's just important for people to know that it is childhood trauma. I had someone to tell me, what story do you have? What story do I have, honey? What? And this is a family member. And I told them I wrote a book more so about my story and how, trauma affected me. Your trauma, what trauma? But sometimes, Jill, when people haven't been through that on their, in their own situation, they really can't relate to yours. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I wrote my book, No One Dies from Divorce, I wanted to write a chapter on kids and, how you can help your kids get through divorce.
Yes.
And I called it Your Kids Are Going to Be Okay, my chapter. And I really didn't get to dive into more of a level other than the fact that, good co-parenting skills and you dealing with your own emotional trauma and and being able to kind of show up in your kid's life after divorce is what will make it so your kids are okay. But I didn't really get to this underlying level that I would have loved to be able to kind of dive into, which I am excited to read your book because I'm sure it dives just so far into that. But I think that that's a really good point about the fact that there's so many people that don't perceive divorce as trauma. They don't want to liken it unto a death or a family member getting sick. They just, they want to brush it off as not that it shouldn't be this monumental thing. And we know as experts in this field that it absolutely is up there with any other trauma that you might incur.
Right. I mean, you have to think about it and look at the numbers on everything as well. Children with parents that are divorced are twice as likely to drop out of high school. They are twice as likely to commit suicide. And 50% of our marriages with children end in divorce. So we need to have this conversation because a lot of our children are being affected. As a teacher, I've had so many kids, Jill, come to school crying, not understanding what is going on at home. Dad comes over, Wednesday night, and then he's not here until Thursday again. Like, this was not the thing. I was used to him taking me to school. I was used to him, picking me up and taking me for a bike ride after school. And then these events that children really look forward to because they're innocent in all of this. They look forward to these opportunities to spend with their parents. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'll come on Wednesday, or oh, I'll come on, next Monday or whatever. And it's not consistent. And children really love, I cannot say this enough. Children love consistency. They love to know what is happening. They want in the classroom when I'm teaching my students, they love consistency. They know what's happening. They know they like to have an agenda. Oh, Miss Sils, I know what's happening next. Same thing at home. So when people say, oh, well, we're going through this situation and I really don't know how to communicate it to my child. Well, it's just like communicating anything else to them. We talk about so much other stuff with our children except what we need to talk about. And trust me, parents, they come to school and tell us your business because guess what? They need a village too. They need a village. I had my 4th grade teacher. I went to school, honey. I told her all my mom and dad business. Outside of my granny, I didn't have anyone to cover that 8 hours. So Miss Owens covered that 8 hours at school. And poor Miss Owens. I mean, she was a teacher and a counselor, but that's what we do as educators, right? Mm-hmm. We nurture our babies, we love on them, we fill in the gap, being that village member. But poor Miss Owens, she had to hear it. I mean, if it wasn't every day, it was every other day, it was something that was happening. I wasn't getting the answers because being raised in the Southern Baptist household is kind of like, you do as I say, not as I do. Don't ask me any questions. You are a child, stay in the child's place. This is what's happening. Go with it.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, the topic about kids liking consistency and structure. So I know you probably know a little bit about this history, but back in the 60s and 70s when party got divorced, it was very, very prominent that mom got custody and then dad got this very, very minimalistic, and the thought process behind it was that gave the kids the consistency that they needed. It kept them in a single home. And, then in the 90s, we were doing all this research, not we, but, others were doing all this research to try to figure out why kids that of divorced parents were struggling so much. Just like you said, high, high school dropout, high drug use, teen pregnancy, teen suicide. And so they were doing a lot of studies on this. And one of the biggest factors that they saw is that they were not having continuous frequent contact with both parents.
Correct.
And so when we talk about having, a schedule and continuity, there's these studies that showed up that kids were struggling because they're not seeing both parents. And so I know, especially in Utah, that there's really been a push to get both parties more consistent, frequent contact with both parents. Not just this minimal time where moms always get, primary custody and then dads just get this minimal time.
Right.
We still look at, in Utah that, the primary caretaker is, going to be the custodial parent. So primary caretaker is what I would say a very, very gender biased role, because it's, it tends to lend to a lot of things that moms do, no matter what, whether you work, whether you don't work. And then it doesn't account for financial, stability. So if you work a job, that primary caretaker does not kind of fall in. So the whole point of my thought with this is I wanted to kind of lead into a discussion with you. Like, what are your thoughts with that? Because I know that there is just this huge debate in every state of whether it makes sense to have more of a consistent home or more consistent, frequent contact with both parents. What are your thoughts with that?
I definitely think it would be more contact with parents, because at some point in the shift in my parents' relationship, the contact was not there as much as I would have preferred. I was a daddy's girl. I liked to ride in his truck. He listened to loud music. He chewed big red gum. He was more of a lax parent. My mom she just had to be on top of it, because here you are, you have an inconsistent husband, okay, an inconsistent marriage. You're young, you're in your early 20s, you have a baby, you're trying to figure it all out. You're away from your family, 2 or 3 hours away from your family. And you're trying to just figure it all out and make sure that you are dotting the I's and crossing the T's. With him, it was more of a laid back approach to parenting. And I was that type of child. It was more my mouth. Okay. It's always been my mouth, but my mouth is the reason why I'm the bossy educator.
Yeah.
And all of these other amazing things, right? But I always had questions. I was very inquisitive. And I'm sure during some of those frustrating moments, my mom just did not want to answer the questions. And I saw that. So I just kind of went away. You know what I mean? Like, let me just not ask, let me not be in the way or what have you. And with my dad, it was different. Sometimes he would want to partake in questions, and he was more of the social person when it came to different conversations. Sometimes, as long as he was not the butt of the joke or the issue, okay, then the conversation was fine. So I definitely say having that consistent visitation with both parents. And I feel that parents should kind of step out of the way and put themselves in a situation of okay, we know that we're not going to be in this home together anymore, but when you come over, maybe we can do, play date as a family. Let the child know, communicate. No, dad is not staying tonight. No, mom is not being in the bed with daddy. Any of that is happening. Dad will tuck you in, but he's going to go on and live the life he lives, and you're going to stay here with me or what have you. But when you see that this is going on, but no one has this conversation with you that this is about to happen, that's where the confusion comes in at. But I would agree that children definitely should see both parents consistently. And the back and forth, Jill, oh my God, that every other weekend deal was just unbearable at times. He has his set of rules. She has her set of rules. When you go to mom's house, you got to click it on. Okay, my mom's house, got to do this. Oh, okay, at mom's house, trash goes out on Wednesday. Okay, dad's house, trash goes out on Tuesday. Just, it is so not fair to children, which is the reason why in my book, I also talk about being careful who you breed with. Just, it's a thought, guys. It is definitely something to think about. It's not just something, the latest trend, because everybody has their baby bump and what is it called? Gender reveal parties. It's way deeper than that, my friends. Grab the books, you can find out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's, a good point as well. Like, it's the quality of the time with each parent versus the quantity of the time. As divorce attorneys, we've seen, like, in states that have like just a 50-50 presumption where they start there, conflict automatically goes down, because you're not necessarily all of a sudden fighting over your kids. But what really frustrates me is the parents that just can't get over themselves and really do what's best for their kids.
Because they're selfish. Oftentimes parents are, as humans, Jill,
right,
we're naturally selfish. If you just go out and watch the pelicans, the pelican is going to grab all the fish for him or herself. Okay. The nature of the beast. That's what it is. Humans, same thing, same deal. I just think we think about ourselves first, even when it comes to the pleasure of what it takes to make a baby, but not one of the responsibilities that comes after creating one.
Right.
That's selfish within itself as well. And then two, it's not only about spending quality time with your child when you have your child, but spending that time alone. Like for us, we never had the opportunity to go and visit my dad, and it was just my dad and us. It was always her, my dad, my brother. It was like a family thing with this unknown woman. It was so weird, So introducing people to your children that don't necessarily have their best interest at heart. Nothing, weird ever happened in a way that I felt uncomfortable, where I was abused or anything like that. But as far as when we went to visit, oh yeah, you all can put your things in the guest bedroom.
Yeah.
I have a bonus son. He's always had his own room wherever we lived until 18. Now he's grown now, so that is off the table. But as a child, I knew how that felt. And with me being in that bonus parent role, I don't even call myself a step mom or a step parent. Me and him had that conversation. I had that conversation with my bonus son. It's just not a word that defines who I am. I want to be more in than that.
Right.
With my dad's wife, I've mostly referred to her as my dad's wife because I really don't know her, Jill, outside of that. We were not invited to the wedding. So we were on the outside because guess what? That's where she wanted us. And that's the reason why I say parents have to advocate for their children. She has no attachment to us, but he did. So parents step up and stand up.
Oh, that's such a good example because my brother just got divorced this year. And every time he starts dating a new girl, it's really, really frustrating because he's got 3 little kids. And I'm always like, why can't you just be a dad to your kids right now? Like, why do you feel like you need companionship? I mean, clearly he does because that's his love language, but I'm just like, you have to consider what you're doing to your kids. But one of the things,
they pay attention to everything. They pay attention to way more than you're ready for too.
Exactly. And One of the things is you said that, we're innately selfish, but not just that. Like when you're going through a divorce, you're in survival mode. And a
Yes.
lot of times anger is the emotion that is running decision making, which is clearly the worst time that you should be making decisions.
Mhm.
And one of the things that, what I talk about all the time is that you have to be able to deal with the emotional part of your divorce to move past the anger stage.
Correct.
You have to remember that you can have a really crappy ex-husband, ex-wife, but they can still be good dads, still be good
Oh my
moms.
God, yeah.
And you have to separate that. So you have to deal with the
Mhm.
trauma of the bad husband, the bad wife, the person that puts you into the, divorce the first place. Like
Right.
rarely you hear somebody getting a divorce over their kids. Oh, it's
Right.
our kids. I don't want kids.
Right.
You don't hear that. It's always because of the other person. And if you can just kind of separate that, deal with your trauma with the fact that you're divorcing this person, that, okay, that's fine. You don't
Mhm.
have to be with that person anymore. It ends that trauma. It ends that emotional response. But now we're
Right.
going to come over here and we're going to learn a whole new way to do this relationship that is best for our kids.
Right.
And if you can deal with that, if you can get into a space of safeness and that you feel like, okay, I can, I can deal with this over here. I feel
Mhm.
better. I can now do what's best for my kids. And
Right.
then the second thing I wanted to say is like when you're looking at your kids and you're thinking, oh, I'm so angry at this person. I just don't like him.
Mhm.
He's horrible, blah, blah, blah. If
Mhm.
you can just answer this one question, do
Mhm.
you think your spouse wants what's best for your kids?
Mhm.
And
Right.
you might sit there and you'll be like, well, he just wants to hurt me. I
Mhm.
hear that a lot. And you're like, no, I want you to answer this question. Sit here and
Right.
think about it.
And be fair. Mhm.
99.5%, because there will be that 0.5% of,
Of course.
narcissistic or high conflict personalities that probably won't fit into this, but
Mhm.
99.5% of the time, you're going to be able to sit there and say, yes, that my ex-spouse wants what's best for my kids. Great.
Right.
So now
Right.
you both want what's best for your kids.
Right. So let's
So
let's roll with that.
exactly. That's a great like landing place. It's a great
Mhm.
place to start. You don't have to trust that person, but what
Mhm.
you have to know is that, hey, he wants what's best for my kids.
Right.
And that's a really great starting point. So
Mhm.
what would you say is some advice that you can say is how can we support our children during divorce?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I would say take accountability. That's first of all. Oftentimes, children never even know why their parents are divorcing in the first place. And some people say, oh, well, they're not able to handle that information. You won't let them go play Roblox at 4 years old by themselves. Okay. They have 15 devices, all the passwords, all the access to everything in the world, and we make excuses about what our children cannot do, and they can. They're very resilient. They actually want to have the conversations, friends. They really do. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Because they come in and have full-fledged conversations, and I'm talking about as young as first grade. They get it. I mean, it's like light bulb go off, like, oh, Miss Sils, this is what's happening. And because I like them to kind of talk themselves through their own situations, oftentimes, opposed to us putting these thoughts in their head about what they're seeing. Well, how does that make you feel? Things of that nature. So after the parents take accountability, have a conversation with the children. Children between the ages of 7 and 14, hey, they get hit the hardest when it comes to divorce with their parents. That was the age that I was actually during that time. And I was 5 when they actually separated. And then it was so much back and forth and in and out and trying to figure it out and whatever for a few years after that, before the divorce was actually finalized years later. And I still really didn't know why it was happening. I didn't know why I had this place that I went to visit my dad, where he lived with this woman and there was a baby there. And I was being told that this baby was my brother, but I didn't see, and I knew what pregnancy was because I was old enough to know. I had cousins at that point. So I saw my auntie pregnant and I saw, people in the family pregnant. So I didn't see my mom in that state, but here it is. I have a little brother over here with this woman that is unknown to me. So it wasn't even anything communicated about, well, yeah, we're going to get a divorce. It's not working out. And it's this new person that's going to be in your life and you're going to be around every other weekend. No formal introduction. I didn't find out her birthday until like 10 or 15 years after the fact. Like, just we were not invited to family reunions. We found out after the fact. And then when I get grown, hey, cousin Petey, and so, no, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And a child came along even when I was on the collegiate level, when I was working on my undergrad. Someone tapped me on the shoulder, which was a friend of my supposed to be sister, and I'm being presented with this, and I'm trying to hang out at the UC. We called it the UC, the University Center, back in school, chilling, hanging out between classes, and I'm having to deal with this BS. You know what I mean? Like, children don't deserve that. I think there should be a clear conversation about who your siblings are, what's happening with your family structure, your household, who's doing what, and the accountability. And I think that for my parents, the accountability felt on not only him due to his infidelity, but it also fell on my mom as well. And oftentimes we like to kind of shift, like kind of make it seem like it's a masculine thing, like, oh, the man had to do it, or, but I definitely think that both parents contribute. And so when you see that your life is headed in this direction and you have children, especially, have those conversations and find someone in the family, if it's not you, that can be supportive and be that village, especially around your kids during that transitional period. It's very important. Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on like helping your children? Like, do you feel like children of divorce should be in therapy or be, in classes or something where with other kids that are dealing with it? What are some of your thoughts on like getting more professional help to help kids through divorce?
Yeah, I think you should take inventory of the type of child that you have. Your child may be comfortable enough with talking to, like I was that kid, I was comfortable enough talking to my parents about it. Funny enough, we were in this horrible fire, and I talk about it in detail in the book. And we had to go stay with my dad for a period of time. And I even asked her, like, how would you feel if somebody had a baby with your husband? So if I'm in the third grade, 8 years old, Jill. Yeah, 8 years old. And I can pose this question to this unknown woman. Why couldn't I have a conversation about the divorce and what was happening? Like, I was on that level of thought process. And fortunately for my granny, she was there to kind of explain things along the way when my parents didn't say anything about it. I'm like, well, Granny, what does that mean? Because he said that that's my brother, and she was able to tell me what was actually happening. So if it's not a support person in the family, then I would say therapy next. But I do think you need to be very careful with therapy, because you want to make sure that that person specializes in working with that particular age of children. Especially if a child is not as extroverted as I am with my thoughts and, sharing, you may want to be careful with that. And then also, as you know, Jill, as an attorney, sometimes, therapy can be used against the other parents in different ways too. So it's just, you have to kind of play it safe, but definitely get your child the support that they need. And if you're not putting your child in therapy, you definitely need to be in therapy yourself, because it will help you kind of figure out and work out the pieces. It's so many moving pieces when it comes to divorce with children too. Yeah. So definitely, I suggest that people get not only the help for their children, but the help for themselves as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I was going to say that, like, you have to be careful with therapy as well if you're using it as a weapon. Like, if you're wanting to get your kids in therapy because you think that that's going to help your case in court, I'm just going to stop you right there. And as a divorce attorney, I don't play that game.
Yeah.
We don't conflict out therapists by creating them as witnesses. And I also don't put my kids in situations where they now are being used for information to better your cause in court. If you want your kids in therapy, it needs to be safe haven, which is what a divorce or legal term that we use to say that those therapists stay out of court. They are there purely to help your kids. Right. And if you're wanting to do it for anything other than that, then don't do it, because
I agree.
Yeah,
because it can get nasty. I've seen it. One of my associates, he has had a situation with divorce, and it was therapy kind of used as a weapon, as you mentioned. And he was just like, I should have done this after the fact, because now she's using it against me, blah, 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 blah. But she's that type of person, very selfish. It's all about her. Excuse me. I'm hurt. I'm going to, do whatever it is I can. Even if it's to manipulate the kids and hurt the kids, I'm going to do that because I know that it hurts you. So that was kind of like her stance and the point of her getting therapy. And now it's really sad because the kids really need therapy, but because of some of the things that the therapist was doing, they don't even trust the therapist. So
yeah, and that's like it doesn't work that way. And courts are getting wise to it as well. It could backfire and look really bad on you.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there's trauma, if there's abuse, if there's issues like that, therapy's great. And getting your kids a safe place to talk about it. But doing it purposely to try to get a confession from your kids is wrong.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to talk about divorce with minorities. Tara, it's not very often that you see a minority such as yourself in this space and champion a cause like this. And I really wanted to use my platform to talk about that as a safe place to talk about what challenges do you feel minorities have? I would say more so than, than others when it comes to divorce and, helping their children through that.
Well, Jill, as you know, our history, women were awarded when men were not in the households. That's when the whole government assistance, welfare came into play. The man cannot be in the household, blah, blah, blah. So now you just have men kind of, wanting to be there, but if the financial situation is not there to support what you have going on, then you leave. So now the woman gets the support. Well, who's at home with the woman? Now it's just her by herself with her children to figure out what's happening. Now he is going on to create a family elsewhere, and he drops some seeds there, and then he has a good time, and repeats the scenario over and over again, unfortunately. And of course, that are not all of our Black men. We have some amazing Black men that are doing their things, that are representing in the fatherhood lane, being leaders in their family, not just only in fatherhood, but being leaders in their family, owning businesses, breaking generational curses, and making things happen, and championing for their families and wanting to see better days for future generations. But that's something that you have to want. That's an inside job. And if it's not something that you want and you desire to have for your children, where they are actually going to bed with their mother and their father, joined together, working together towards the same cause, towards the same last name, then sometimes that's not the case. Everybody doesn't have it in them, right? And it's not only happening in the African-American households. 37% of divorces are ending in divorce. 37% of marriages, rather, are ending in divorce, period.
Right.
So we have a conversation that is not necessarily led by race, but more so led by what can we do to save the children that are being affected by adult decisions. And that's just a conversation that people really don't want to have, because everyone's kind of like, oh, well, adults can do what it is that they want to do, right? And you can. But when you are leading a life and it affects other people, your children, and you are just out here creating, in the world, you don't think you have any hand in that. And it's about presence. They need your presence, cool gifts, the newest bike, the latest car, I don't know. Yes, you can get a piercing in your ear, nose, or whatever. That's all cool. But your presence, when they actually need you there, is more important than anything. And for me, the abandonment that people don't understand when they're not there, oftentimes because they haven't experienced it in their own household. For example, with my mom, her parents were married 53 years. She knows nothing about a weekend stay at dad's house in the guest bedroom.
Yeah.
She knows nothing about it. Her parents were married until they passed away. She had all of her siblings are by the same mama and daddy, 6 of them. So she knows nothing about this broken story that I have, that my parents were married and he had me. Then he went out and had a baby with somebody else, and then came back and had a baby with my mom. So that's my biological brother from my mom and dad, right? And then it went out again. She knows nothing of that life, nothing about it. even to the point of having conversations. I've had conversations with not the woman that he married, but the other woman that he had a baby with. We actually sat down and had dinner. And I told her that I wanted to have a conversation with her about her choices. And, why was she my dad's safe haven, a soft place to land? You know what I mean? When things were not going right with her and him and my mom. And then the woman that he married, she was a soft place to land. And that's crazy to me because as a woman if a woman has worth, okay, if she has value, self-love, and this man has just gotten out of a marriage and a marriage with two little children, and then you just, have you a baby before, while they're still married, and y'all still figuring out whatever type of entity you all will become later, and just have no respect for him needing to be a dad. Those are the type of things I talk about in my book, making sure that you vet the person that you're dealing with when you have children. It's just not you. You come as a package, okay?
Yeah.
So you have to think about that and consider all of the pieces of your puzzle, because that's what's going to make up your picture frame. And a lot of picture frames are not so cute, Jill.
I know. As you were saying that, I kept thinking of Nick Cannon.
Oh, God.
I have talked about him a lot because I think he's a case study to whatever he's thinking and the reasons why he needs to have so many children with so many different women. That's beside the point. And everybody's like, well, he can financially support him. I'm like, can he? He's paying like $25,000 a month to each woman for child support. I don't know if he can. But one of the articles that triggered me when you were talking about this was over Christmas. He made an attempt to see all 12 of his kids. Now, even if for some reason he was miraculously able to go across the continent, because he's got some that live in Florida and a lot that live in LA, and then Mariah Carey, I think, lives in New York. Even if he was miraculously able to do that, do you think he had that quality time with each of those kids? And so when you say that, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, those kids, yeah, okay, Nick Cannon's their dad, but they are never going to know him as his dad. Like he's never come to their baseball games or their dance recitals because he is busy and he's got 12 kids. And so anyway,
presence over presence. He can spend all the amazing presence in the world, but when his presence is not present, it doesn't even matter. And my dad was the dad that, it's so many amazing things about my dad, but the disappointment and the choices that he made to pick someone over your own children to raise and be there and be present in all of the moments. Now, he would come to recitals, honey. My birthdays were lit.
Nice.
My birthdays were lit. Christmas was lit. But you meet your dad in such a different way when you're experiencing divorce as a girl and you were a daddy's girl. It's just a totally different need that he will probably never know exists. And that's okay. You learn, Jill, as you go through your own healing process, that sometimes people can they just can't be what you need them to be. And once you come to that realization, that allows you to forgive, that allows you to move on. And as you have your own relationships in life, you definitely look back, to that rule book and be like, what was going on with that? And you just kind of look back and you look back at I call them my tool belt. I like to pull those tools off my tool belt and take a look at them every now and then and remember, and it makes you be who you are today. And because of his decisions, I've been able to write a book about this. I've been able to go in to speak to multiple families as a consultant, as a Bossy Educator, helping them to pick up the pieces and talk about their advocacy for their children, not just as divorced parents, but I've created a whole educational resource website and tools that will help parents be a parent, simply be a member of the village. I've created a subscription called the Private Parent Advocacy subscription, where I will be able to provide parents with advocacy 12 months out of the year. Because guess what? Just because school is over, you still have extracurricular activities. You still have, okay, he's in middle school now. Where do I go? Or they're having a hard time transitioning from high school to college. How do I do this? Parents just need an extra voice sometimes. You're a parent of four, you know that. I'm sure you pick up the phone sometimes and ask for advice. and I don't have biological kids. So my friends always say, you're the auntie, come get your niece, come get your nephew, because I'm the person that has the patience. And I'm just like, it's not that bad. It's more of how you respond to it than what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
But hey, I've been an educator for 20 plus years. I've taught all the grade levels at this point. We call them grade bands. So K through 5, of course, is elementary, 6 through 8, middle, and then 7 through 12 for high. And then on the collegiate level as well. So I've had so many conversations with children, just not about divorce, but more so about wanting to be more inclusive with their family. Just put the devices down, have a phone conversation. Have a conversation without the phones being attached. Everybody put their phone on do not disturb, because children really love family. Like that was one of the things as a girl growing up, I loved my family. So when it was dismantled, I was just torn to pieces. My grades went down. I had to go out to Texas. Shout out to my auntie. She was able to assist me. She was a teacher at that time. Now she's a retired principal. But I was having issues in school, and I had never had issues in school. School has always been my jam. I love school to this day. Mm-hmm. So we definitely have to have a conversation about it, Jill. It shouldn't be something that we act like it's not happening. Divorce is trauma, guys. I even had to put the definition of it, childhood trauma, in my book, so that people like, trauma, how is that a trauma? It's a trauma. It's a trauma. Yep. It's a trauma. And oftentimes we don't like to label it because we're the person that has created it.
Exactly. We don't like to say that we're the cause of the trauma to our children, but we all are.
It happens.
One of the things I just wanted to end with on a legal basis is that whether you're a minority or not, and you're facing yourself in a situation where somebody's left you and you have no money, child support is mandatory in all 50 states in the United States. And the attorney generals or the offices, whatever they have set up in that state, allows you to ask for child support for free. You don't have to go through a lawyer to do that. You usually can apply on whatever website they require, and then they, take it from there to try to get child support set up. So I did want to just mention that is a way that you can ensure that you're putting somebody's, I guess, feet to the fire and trying to get them to financially support you. And I know there's a lot of frustrations with that. I've done a few podcasts on that about, the cons and pros and collecting child support, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and child support is actually one of my chapters. Is called "What is Child Support Exactly?" And the reason why I put the chapter there is because it was something that I heard my father always complain about, and I just feel like it's not a topic that should be discussed with a child. That is so inappropriate.
Oh, yeah.
Because the child is looking at you like, well, hell, I don't know. And I don't know if I get it, what's done with it. I have no control over it. The check doesn't come in my name. I don't even have an account, dude. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
So I actually have a chapter talking about that and giving the actual definition of child support so that you will know. And before people decide to have children, maybe go and do the homework and do the work, where you are having a good time, so that you will know what the ramifications are beforehand, so that you're prepared. I think that, preparation is key. And as you know, Jill, in this life, you can't prepare for everything, but you can definitely go and get the knowledge. So you can't say you didn't know.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, I want people, Tara, to know where to find you. How can they find your books, your information about you, and get more of this amazing information that you have to give them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am everything, thebossyeducator.com, and then on Instagram, the Bossy Educator. So that's simple enough. You'll find all of my resources, my consulting sessions, my books, my merch. All of it is there. The Bossy Educator.
I love it. And I love your name, the Bossy.
Thank you.
People call me the boss all the time, but I love the Bossy Educator. So great.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
It was so good to meet you. This has been just really, really a great show. I want everybody to just know that, divorce is not the trauma that needs to end anything. It's exactly what you could use, or a platform to become a better person, a better version of yourself. So just remember, week on, week off, we come here to let you know that there is resources, there is so much education out there to help you through this and to get you even better on the other side. So that is No One Dies from Divorce. Thanks, Tara, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jill. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, follow, and share. I'd love to hear your questions and feedback. You can contact me at community@jillcoyle.com. See you next time. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. Any advice given on the podcast is general and shall not be construed as legal advice.